So when I started telling people that I'd be quitting my full-time job and moving to San Francisco, one of the most common questions I got was, what does your family think about this? What's up, guys, and welcome to Vicurious, the podcast where you can vicariously live your curiosities through others. If you guys missed my previous episode of me telling my managers that I'd be quitting my corporate job, go check it out. It's called Becoming Unemployed. In today's episode, I'll be talking about both the highs and the lows of telling my family that I'll be leaving the country. So before I begin, I just want to say that this episode has content that's very personal and dear to me. So if you guys can listen all the way to the end, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. So to start off, I have a sister that's 3 years younger than me. And she didn't particularly look very excited or worried that I'd be leaving. In fact, she looked like she was more happy that she'd be able to drive my car around while I was gone. One thing that she did say though was that she wanted me to get a girlfriend that was very different from my personality and very different from my previous girlfriends so that it can really help me go beyond my comfort zone and experience new things that I haven't before. And then from my dad's side, he did ask me if I was really sure if this is what I wanted to do, because from his perspective, I had a very good job that I was currently at and it didn't seem worthwhile for me to give it up. But at the same time, he's not really someone that would force me to do something based on his beliefs. So from his perspective, he simply asked if I was certain about this and whether I wanted to go through with it or not. And in fact, when I actually confirmed that I'd be leaving, he supported me by giving me an extra few dollars to spend on rent. So despite being part of a so-called Asian family, where the stereotype is for the parent to tell the child to study hard, go to school, become a doctor, etc., the response from my dad was actually considered very positive. However, the response from my mom was even more unexpected. So I asked my mom what she thought about my decision while she was ironing my clothes. And yes, to give you perspective, I have never ironed my clothes before. I've always lived with my mom, that's how babied I was, and that actually gave me more of an incentive to leave home. But anyways, surprisingly, my mom was very supportive about this and she really encouraged me to go.
You need a new experience. You have to see worldwide. You have to see new things.
You're not sad?
No, not at all. I was going to kick you out. Oh, don't stay. You don't have any concerns, problems, and
I'm too comfortable right
you're
now?
too comfortable. So you're not going to change. I want you to change.
When were you going to kick me out?
When?
Yeah.
This June.
This June?
Yeah. Your birthday.
Why didn't you tell me?
I was going to kick you out.
Why didn't you tell me?
Because you are already 25.
I'm 23.
Oh, no, you becoming 24.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be leave 20.
I was supposed to leave the house when I was
Yeah,
20?
20. You stayed 3 years more. So now time to go out. I don't know, something gonna change.
Something for the better?
Of course, better.
When do you think I'll be back?
At least you have to there 1 year. Don't come back in 1 year.
Don't come back in 1 year? So I was laughing at it back then, but thinking about it now, my mom made a very good point. Don't come back home for an entire year. Because if I do that, I can experience all the seasons, all the holidays, all these moments in a new country, in a new environment that I would not have otherwise. So by challenging myself to be in a new place for an entire year, I think I would learn way more than expected. So after I spoke to my mom, I actually made it a personal challenge to try and stay out of the country for an entire year. But wait, hold on. If my mom was so supportive about my decision, why didn't she do something similar when she was younger? So I asked her about that, and apparently she wanted to. She wanted to quit her job and move to Japan to pursue her aspirations. But for her, something got in the way. You were working in Korea for 4 years?
Yeah, in one same company.
Uh-huh.
So I was kind of sick and tiring. So at that time I was really interested in being fashion designer. So I went to the academy
Oh, really?
after work every night, and I made a dress and I made a jacket. I really like that. So I was going to go after quit my job, but that time, unluckily, I met my husband and get married, and I have a baby. So I have to, I have to give up.
So you regret not going?
Of course.
If
I
you-
never go. And maybe I'm a fashion designer for now. I don't know. That was the only first chance and last chance. You know, the life, we never know what's gonna happen. Do whatever you want. You are young. You're young. If you don't do now, you won't be able to do later.
Okay. I'll miss you.
I miss you too.
I'll be back soon.
But 1 year later. At least.
Okay. So that was actually my first time talking to my mom about this. So it was also the first time I heard this story. And I could already tell that this was one of her biggest regrets in life, not being able to take that risk. Something that I always say is, I would rather regret the things that I did do than the things that I didn't do. I hope that I can do her proud and that she can live vicariously through me on my journey. I had a very tough time saying goodbye to two specific people in my life, and they were my grandmother and my grandfather. They were very adamant and very open in telling me not to go, and that it's much better for me to stay where I currently am. This way, they know that I'm safe and they can continuously see me. I won't go into specific details, but not too long ago, there was a death in the family. So it actually makes perfect sense for them to be so worried about me. And on top of that, I know that they're worried about how long they're gonna live for. So the potential thought of this being the last time I'm going to see them, I know that it was scaring them a lot. However, by this point, I was already very determined to go on this adventure. As the date of my flight got closer, I eventually had my final dinner with my grandparents before I was set to leave. And by this point, they were actually a lot more supportive about my decision. Dinner went great, and eventually I was driving them home. The drive was very quiet, a little bit of music playing in the background. And then suddenly, my grandfather said something. I'll say it in Korean first, quoting him exactly word for word, and then I'll give the translation. But he basically said, 잘 갔다가 이 다음에 또 다시 와서 만나자. And in English, this translates to, have a safe trip, and let's meet again in the future when you come back. As soon as he said this, I actually started crying. But I didn't want to make it obvious to them that I was, so I kept my hands on the wheel, I tried not to make any noise, and I just had a few teardrops roll down my face. Out of everyone that I knew, it was probably hurting my grandfather the most that I'd be leaving. For him to hide that side, that in itself was making me tear up. But not only that, the potential thought of me coming back one day and them not being around, I think that would absolutely crush me. So I eventually got to their place to drop them off, and I got out of the car to say bye. And by this point, I was actually crying a lot, like it was very evident. And surprisingly, my grandparents were like, why are you getting out of your car? You should hurry up and go home to get some rest. And they were actually rushing me quite a bit. So I quickly said goodbye and got back into my car. But as I was driving off, through my rearview mirror, I saw my grandmother put her hands to her mouth as she started crying. And I could tell how hard they were trying not to show me that side. Cause right when I saw that, I can't even explain how much I was crying. Like by this point I was debating whether, first of all, I was being a good grandson or not. And this was also the point where I most felt like giving up on my dream. That maybe it's not the best choice to go to San Francisco. and maybe it's better to just stay where I am with my family. So, as I was crying and driving off, I tried to find a distraction by drowning myself in music. So I pulled out my most upbeat playlist and I played a song. But coincidentally, this song came on. So, although the theme of the song doesn't match me perfectly, I was definitely scared to be lonely. And here I was, a grown-ass man, crying his eyes out driving on the streets with this song playing in the background. Now, despite how pathetic I probably looked to some people, deep down inside, I knew that I was determined and confident to move forward with my decision and get on that plane to San Francisco. And with that came the day of my flight. Surprisingly, both my mom, dad, and my sister came out, which is actually very rare for us because everyone's usually super busy. I remember when I was walking toward my terminal entrance at the airport, I swear I looked back at my family like 6 or 7 times because honestly, it was pretty scary thinking that I wouldn't be able to see them again for who knows how long. So with that thought, I kept looking back, waving at them again, with a smile on my face, and I got on my plane. So thanks again for listening, guys. In the next episode, I finally land in San Francisco, but quickly realize that I have no clue what the fuck I'm doing. So stay tuned. Thanks again to Scott Holmes for letting me use his music. And speaking of family, thanks again to my sister Vivian for designing the logo for Vicurious.